All right, welcome back to the Flipping Junkie podcast. Really excited today because I've got John Dwyer here on the show, and he's a wealth coach. And basically, imagine having someone in your corner challenging the status quo to make sure that your overall financial plan is on track. Not just your income, not just your potential for losses, not just investments or your retirement, and not just your taxes or your estate, but having somebody who looks over all of them collectively. That's pretty much what John does, and he's an expert in this and has a long history in it. And I love his story about how traditional financial planning is somewhat broken, and the explanation of that. So, welcome to the show, John. Pumped to have you on.
Hey, man. Thanks, Danny. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Let's get started just so that people out there listening can get a better idea of who you are and your background and getting into where you're at. Share your story and take your time.
Sure, you bet. So, when I graduated from college, I was a hockey player. I played college hockey, and of course, education went hand in hand with being a college athlete. And so I graduated with an education degree, but I also had an economics minor as well. And so when I first graduated college, I was coaching and teaching, and I always had an entrepreneur mindset, right? And I always knew that I wanted to get into business for myself. And I was just fascinated with the financial world. And so after a few years of teaching, I decided to turn the table a little bit and go into education just from a different format, right? And so I started out with the traditional planning models, big firms. And over my time there, I started to dig into money. And what I started to realize is that traditional planning is broken. Now that, as a financial advisor, right, by title, that's a big and bold statement to make. But the proof is just look around. I mean, if it just worked as a science, right, you would just be able to put your money away, save it, and at some point in time retire and have the same standard of living of income that you would have during your working career. Well, Danny, the question is if you look across America today, how many people are able to retire at the same standard of living that they had during their working career?
Right? Yeah, it's not many.
Not many, right? Now there's exceptions, right? And you and probably a lot of your listeners could be exceptions to the rule. But the point is that what I discovered is that it's broken. And what I mean by that, okay, is that traditional planning typically looks at money from a microeconomic perspective. And money's not micro, money's macro. See, every financial decision that we make, there's opportunity cost to every other decision that we could have made. And so we have to look at money from a different perspective. And I'll talk to people, and I mention a lot of times, there's a big difference between wealth and math. See, traditional planning will typically look at money from a mathematical equation, right? Average rates of return or accumulate. But the reality is there's a huge difference between wealth and math. And so over my career, I've spent the later half of my career just really putting traditional planning on call in regards to helping clients understand how wealth really works from not only an accumulation standpoint, but even more importantly, from a distribution standpoint. And how can we use the tax code? How can we be more efficient? And how can we avoid losses to the institutions and the government that are put in our way to prevent our outcomes? So that's a little bit of background of where I've come from, where I've been, and today we just really focus on helping people understand how money really works.
Nice. Yeah, a couple of things that you said there. The wealth is different than math. It's true. And then tying that into the statement about the opportunity cost, right? Because something might sound great. And if it's presented to you in a way where it's, if you have a savings account versus a money account versus this and that, you're only kind of looking at the difference between one very small subset of possible avenues of having your money somewhere and saving and investing, versus looking at the bigger picture of what that. Can you explain a little bit more about, the opportunity costs or the missed opportunities? Or
absolutely. See, and a lot of times too, Danny, this is what's really important to understand is that we look at money typically as allowing our dollars to only do one thing at one time and one benefit at one time. And see, one area where traditional planning is broken is that we talk a lot about the miracle of compounding interest, right? Albert Einstein defined it as the miracle of compounding interest. And it's that linear bell curve. So for your audio listeners, imagine the linear curve, right? The curve, just that bell curve of the miracle of compounding interest. And this is what people talk about. The problem is that it's not the miracle of compounding interest that matters. It's the miracle of uninterrupted compounding interest that matters. You never want to lose that forward momentum of your wealth. So what happens, to your point? Let's say I'm putting money in some type of investment, right? And now I meet you and I want to go flip houses. So I have to make a determination of either I pull my money out of this account to go do real estate or some other type of investment, right? So there's an opportunity cost because I have to take the money out of the account that was compounding growing to go and hopefully get a better rate of return over here. See, and that is using our dollars for one thing, and that becomes either or decisions. And if we look at institutions like banks, right? Banks understand the concept of velocity of money and other people's money and collateral. And so if we can understand those solid principles, right, to where, what if there was entities or strategies to where you could leverage money here and go do something over here and never give up that forward momentum of your wealth? Well, now you're creating and generating multiple rates of return on your dollars, right? So it's just helping people understand that there's more to it than just the here and now decisions. It's a long-term play. And so I think your question was some of the losses, right? Like efficiencies. Is that what you kind of were talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at wealth, okay, today I have discovered about 36 transfers of wealth. I call them wealth transfers, okay? And it's the government and the institutions have made it their career to make us unaware of them, right? And I'll just kind of give you an example of one, okay? And a big one is today under current tax code, in retirement, 60% of Americans will lose on average $250,000 worth of wealth in retirement, the way the tax code is set up. That is a wealth transfer. So think about your investment. Let's just say you had money in some type of investment account, right? And because of the way the tax code is set up for in distribution, if you were going to lose $250,000 worth of wealth, what rate of return would you have to get on those investments to recapture that guaranteed loss?
Yeah, pretty crazy.
You can't do it, right? But see, through strategy, if we could legally show you how to avoid that altogether, right? That's a guaranteed flip of a $250,000 mistake, right? And so what we help our clients understand is that there's places that we are losing money unknowingly and unnecessarily throughout our lifetimes. And we just help our clients understand these areas and plug the leaks, which will allow them to recapture those dollars and reuse them for more efficient means. And there's really no risk to that, right? Because, you know, here's another thing that drives me nuts in the financial space is we often hear about, you know, we have to have high risk to have high rates of return. To me, that's crazy. What if we're just more efficient? Like for in that example, if I just showed you a way how to eliminate a $250,000 loss in retirement because of the way the tax code is set up, there's no risk in order for you to recapture those dollars. And now you're way further off or better ahead than you would have been trying to catch your rate of return the opposite direction. Does that make sense? So from my perspective and what we help our clients do is we just help them look at areas where they're inefficient. And through tax code or through strategy, we show them ways that they can plug the leaks and recapture those dollars, and they're far better off. I mean, they could literally stick the money in their mattress and be better off.
Yeah, from what you said, yeah.
Right, and they were gonna lose the money anyways. So if we just show them a better way to do it, there's really no risk. So I operate, and my principle is that it's more important to avoid the losses than it is to pick the winners. And that can be proven throughout history. And so those are the strategies and things that we help our clients understand, and the difference between wealth and math, right? And so again, there's just areas through, and not that everybody has 36 transfers. Danny, you might have 1, 2, 3, or 4, right? But we've identified 36 areas to where people could be losing money unknowingly and unnecessarily.
Right. So let's look at maybe a typical real estate investor, right? As an investor in real estate, you know, that seems to be, that's the vehicle, right, of investing.
Yep.
the money and making and creating wealth. You know, of course, you've got transactional people. Maybe you might not call them actually investors, right? Because it's more of a transactional thing, you know, like a deal, you know, tax stuff dealer or whatever. You know, you're buying and selling, and you're making cash that way. So you got to keep doing. You're not really investing money at that point. But if we're taking that money and we're picking up rental properties, you know, is there, you know, do you have any clients like that where you're helping them with, you know, maybe the money that's coming off of that? See, we typically, I myself, I can't speak for everybody, but I tend to want to keep everything within real estate.
Yep. And real estate's real estate obviously is a great investment tool, right? But the challenge that I find with a lot of my real estate clients is that they get to the point to where the depreciation is gone, right? And they get stuck to where I call them the perfect taxpayer. They're losing all the depreciation. They either got to buy more, right? Or if they sell, they got to recapture it. The cash flow, the reason why we buy real estate is typically for the cash flow, passive income, right? And that is a great strategy. And we want to help our clients do that. And we show them how to do it more efficiently. Okay. But the challenge is that you'll forever be on that radar screen of the IRS from a tax cash flow income perspective. Okay. So what we help our clients do is that, again, I'm a huge proponent of real estate, right? Because it's a great asset. But what we have to look at is from those passive incomes or these other cash flows, if you're over and above, where else can you store your wealth to protect it and grow it off that radar screen of the IRS? And there's only a few areas in the tax code that allow you to do that. Okay. The other thing that I see is, and now this is just you know, one thing of discussion, but real estate currently, right, is a tax advantage play, right? Capital gains versus ordinary income. What I wrestle with is when I see people using self-directed IRAs, because the money is there and they want to go buy a better asset than leaving the money in a 401k or an IRA. So they want to self-direct it and go buy real estate, right? The challenge though is that now they've taken a capital gains asset and turned it into an ordinary income asset, right? So my suggestion, or a never recommendation, but to educate them around, okay, do you believe taxes are going to be higher or lower in your financial future? I mean, if I was to ask you that question, Danny, what would you say? Do you believe taxes today will be higher or lower in our future?
Yeah, higher.
Higher. Okay. So if taxes are going to be higher, right? And I mean, just with this administration change, it could be higher, right? And we know what the new proposal says. But even, and this isn't political because it doesn't matter. We have $27 trillion in debt. We have a tax problem, right? We are facing a problem. Okay. And if taxes are going to be higher in our future, does it make sense to do strategies that will reduce our income today, but then only have to pay the tax man in the future when it's a higher rate? See, and all that does is postpone the tax and the tax calculation. But see, we hate paying taxes today, don't we?
Right,
and so
right.
a lot of the strategies that we're using is to try to reduce our taxable income today, but in the future, right? And there's a difference between a reduction and a deduction. Okay. So the best things to do is to have the deductions, right, versus reduction.
Yeah. So what do you recommend though? I mean, what are some of the recommended things to do with, you know, let's use that scenario of having, you know, that cash flow and wanting to invest that in a way that's not on the tax radar.
So
what are some things that we can take?
Yeah, so one financial vehicle that is probably one of the most misunderstood is a properly designed life insurance contract that you can utilize to park assets, to park wealth, and then go buy real estate with that asset. Now, the real estate that you purchase, right, is going to be subject to taxation, but everything inside these policies are protected, right? And so you can utilize those, and there's tax strategies around that, right, to go help you buy more real estate. It's one of the only areas to protect your asset from the tax code. Margin accounts. Okay. Have you ever heard of margin account before?
No.
So if you buy stock, you can buy stock on margin. Okay. So let's say I have $100,000 stock value. Typically, you can borrow up to $50,000 of the valuation of the stock to go do something else with it, right? Because you're using the brokerage's money based on your stock value. So a loan, okay, is a tax exempt nature inside the tax code. But when I borrow the money on margin, if the stock corrects or there's a margin call, you have to put the money back immediately, right? And so that's a very sometimes risky play as to where you can, position some of your assets. Reverse mortgages. Now, a lot of people don't like to talk about reverse mortgages on the primary residences, right? But the reverse mortgage in retirement is a complete tax exempt cash flow back to you, right? Because it's basically a return of all your principal plus some of the gains. So there's areas in that tax code that we can park assets, right, or park money from a distribution perspective to where you'll never file a tax return. And a lot of it has to do with loans, right? Equity, the HELOCs, right? When you borrow that equity out of a property, you're not taxed on the money from the bank. The only challenge there is that the bank wants their money on time and regular, right? From a payment perspective. So when we look at a proper design life insurance contract, for example, okay, it's real estate without the peaked roof, I call it, has a flat roof, right? Because there's no time commitment or leverage or not leverage, but there's no time commitment of when you have to put that money back, because it's collateralized by death benefit, which we are guaranteed to die. So think about this from a property flipping perspective, right? Or just a different real estate perspective. If you were to go to a traditional banking environment and you went to the bank and you said, hey, listen, we found a property, it's run down. What we would like to do is we would like to get a loan from you, but for the first 6 months, we got to rehab it, put a bunch of money in. So we don't want to make a single payment back to the bank. 6 months later, right, we're going to get renters in there. So in 6 months, we'll start to pay you interest. And a year from now is when we'll start the amortization schedule based on what you want us to pay back. Okay. Now, in typical banking fashion, what would they tell you if you brought that deal to them? What would the bank tell you? No, right? Then here's your cup of coffee. Thanks for coming in, right? See, but with a properly designed life insurance contract, because it's collateralized by our death, there is no time commitment, no repayment structure, and your money still compounds and grows. And so it's one of the few assets that can, really benefit you doing other deals like this in growth through real estate. It's just one of the most misunderstood assets there is.
Yeah, it's not talked about very often.
No, but yet what's shocking is that if you look at all the major banks, like Bank of America right now, and I'm going to get the statistic wrong, okay, because it's outdated, but they have about $26 billion. It's more than that, $26 billion parked in bank-owned life insurance. And they lend it and use it just the way that I'm talking to you about. And if you look at major people in our history, right, they have used this tool to create wealth. And it's just a tool, right?
So why do you think it is that some people, not more people are doing it, just because it's misunderstood? It's not something that other people are promoting using.
Yeah, and you got to think about it. Where does the message in the media come from, right? It comes from Wall Street and the government. I mean, when you look at traditional planning, Danny, what's the first thing that they tell you should put money into? A 401k IRA, right? If you listen to the traditional mindset, right? It's to max those plans out. Well, who does that benefit? It doesn't benefit the consumer. It benefits the government and the advisor. I mean, think about that from a financial planning perspective, okay? I get to charge a fee, and that money is tied up in those accounts for how long? Until you're at least 59 and a half, right?
Yeah.
So I get to charge a fee on that account for all those years, and half the money's not even yours. And so we just have to listen to where the noise is coming from, right? Where the messages is coming from. And just like you're a little bit of what I know about your background is you're in a day-to-day job building software, and you wanted to be in business for yourself and do things differently. Right? And that's the difference between wealth and math. See, I can look at things from an accumulation and an average rate of return perspective, but I'm going to fail. I have to look at what the institutions are doing and the wealthy people are doing. Right? And we have to look at money from an uncommon perspective. Because to put you in the top 1%, here's a statistic that's interesting. The top 1% of income earners in the United States, according to the IRS, the income is around $400,000 a year. That will put you in the top 1% of income earners.
Wow.
That's it, 400,000. To be in the top 10%, it's about $190,000 of income. That's
Well, I
it.
mean, it's because, people aren't necessarily having that income come down to them personally, right? I mean, is that?
That's adjusted gross income.
Hmm.
That's what's crazy about it. So if you're making more than 10%, if you're making 90% more money than the American population, what type of financial strategy should you be employing? Should you be doing the same things that everybody else is doing? Or should you be doing uncommon strategies?
Yeah.
And to what you're helping your listeners do is you're looking at money from an uncommon approach. That's why real estate is really attractive and a really great asset, because it's different. There's opportunity there. There's
So
collateral.
what are the steps then to go in and start, utilizing the life insurance contract to do that? I mean, what are some of the ways that works for some of your clients?
Yeah. So first of all, the design is really, really important. Okay. Because when you hear life insurance, you can read 10,000 articles that say it's the worst thing in the world, but it has to be designed properly. And so we only use certain companies that have designed their products a certain way. And then we just help our clients look at where they're being inefficient and help them where they can reposition assets, help them understand there is other tax strategies that we use, and to free up money to redirect into a policy. Now, that is just the product, but it's strategy, right? Like, we create wealth through strategy, not through product. Okay. And the analogy I like to use a lot of the times is, are you a golfer at all?
No.
No. Okay.
Not since I was 20 and I broke a club out of frustration. I was like, this.
Yeah. So I'm not much of a golfer either, but here's the story that I want to walk you through, right? Imagine this. Okay. So we're going to send you, Danny, to the PGA. I'm going to bet that you're going to win it. And I'm going to give you two options and you have to pick one. Okay. You can go to the PGA and you have to use your current clubs, or maybe borrow somebody's because you don't have current clubs, right? And use
I'm missing one or two, yeah.
Yeah, right. And use your current ability. Okay. Or when we send you down there, you can use the ability of any professional golfer that you want and use the current clubs that you have, or you're gonna have to borrow from your neighbor. Which one would you choose to play the game, to play the round of golf?
Yeah, obviously.
The ability.
Yeah.
Right? The ability is far more important than the club. So when we look at wealth and what people are doing, we have to take them to the financial tee box and get their swing correct and look at areas where those wealth transfers that I was talking about, inefficiencies and these.
Yeah, because it's not one size fits all. Everybody's got a different situation.
No, it is not. And the problem that I have with our industry is they just try to solve the problems through products. Oh, buy this widget, and people have what I call a financial junk drawer. They'll come in and there is no coordination and integration to anything they have going on. Right? I mean, when we think about it, people in their life typically will have a stock person, a mortgage person, a planner, a CPA, an attorney, all these different areas of P&C person. When have they ever sat down in the same room and been on the same page for the client? It rarely happens. Yeah. And so even though they might be doing what's best from their viewpoint, there's no coordination to what the CPA might be doing over here.
Yeah.
So we see a lot of people with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, and they're never going to get ahead.
Right. So here's a question that I think is going to be helpful for the audience too, because I know there's, just like what we're talking about, not one size fits all. There's a wide range of, where people are at with their wealth, growing their fortune and all this kind of thing. So if somebody is not sitting on a bunch of hundreds of $1,000s of money that they can put into and invest into something, for the people that don't have as much, smaller amounts, do you have recommended strategies for, do you work with people like that as well, so that to help them get a leg up on make sure they grow the money faster, even from the beginning position?
Great question. You know, a lot of people will say, well, I'm not going to work with someone unless they have a net worth of X. Okay. To me, that's ridiculous, because it's all about education. And even though people think that they don't have like certain money, there's inefficiencies everywhere. Okay. So on average, I will find anywhere between 15 to $20,000 of inefficiencies that we can free up for people, even though they think that, oh, I don't have any money. Maybe this will like be, you know, they hear of a financial coach or a planner. They're like, oh, I don't have any money right now. Right. Well,
Mhm.
they're already putting money in places that are probably inefficient, and,
Right.
or there's money in places that are inefficient. And we show them strategies on how to be more efficient. So my job is to find the money. My job is to find the inefficiencies. Okay. And it's all through education. And, you know, I really don't make recommendations. I just help people understand how wealth works. And it's up to them to take the information in and determine what is it that they want for them. Right. Because it is coordination. And so we look at everything. So that was a long-winded answer, but I don't limit my clients to an income level. I think that's foolish, because everybody's got potential, everybody's got opportunity, and I want to help people understand and become free from the institutions in Wall Street and be on a better course, period.
Yeah. Well, I think it would benefit people to even if it's going to cost something, to have that understanding. Because I love how you said that you don't become somebody that they need you to answer everything for them as far as every single step of the way. You're a coach, yeah, but you teach them how to think that way and live that way and invest that way. And that's infinitely more valuable, right? Because they can come up with what works for their situation. And I think we just need more of that in general for every aspect of life, right?
Oh, you
You
know,
know, with
Danny, you nailed it on the head. I mean, it's great when I start talking with clients about strategies. Sometimes I just sit back and let them, once the light bulb goes on, they'll start talking about all the things that they can do, and I just start to smile,
Mm,
because they're the ones that are, see, we are our greatest asset. Okay. And our industry, I believe, takes that equation out. We are our greatest asset. We should be building ourselves up and putting ourselves in positions where we have liquidity, use, and control of our money.
mm.
And we need to be in control of our wealth, not the institutions or the government. And everything that we do, typically from a traditional planning perspective, puts everybody else in control. And so I love the conversations when those light bulbs start going on, because I learn just as much as from my clients of things that they want to do and ideas and strategies, as long as long as within the rule book and legal,
Yeah.
right? That it's amazing the conversations and the things that they dream up.
Mm.
So I've gotten out of the recommendation business. I mean, I don't recommend anything. I guide and educate and allow my clients to make those decisions about what they want and how much money do they want off that radar screen of the IRS legally.
Yeah, that's huge. And having, you don't have to be top 1% to, manage wealth and grow wealth like the 1%.
No, because I mean, Danny, again, on average, 60% of Americans will lose $250,000 worth of wealth in retirement, just based on how the
Very.
tax code is set up.
Oh man.
That doesn't take,
Yeah.
and the income on that is only $45,000 a year of income. So we're not talking about mega wealthy people here.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just helping people better understand the inefficiencies and where they're losing money. And if we can prevent that, again, it's avoiding losses, right? And I'm very big on working with people that believe what I believe. I don't work with everybody at all. This might not be for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not for everybody. Okay. But it's for those who believe what I believe, right? And utilizing the tax code and minimizing losses to put yourself in a better position.
Nice. So if anybody's interested out there, like what is your structure of working with people? Do you do consulting, or is it how are you structured to help people out?
Well, that's a great question. In fact, I was going to shoot a little video on this the other day, but you know, our industry is proponed, or a lot of information is out there about how you should hire a fee-based planner, right? And my problem with that is that someone could put together beautiful pie charts, bar graphs, and all this beautiful things in a 3-ring binder, and it's going to sit on the shelf and collect dust.
Yeah.
So what has that really done for anybody? You just charged a fee, right, for some advice. So we get paid on implementation. And what I mean by that is that we spend our time educating and helping our clients understand all these different strategies and ideas. And once they implement it is how I would get compensated. Because that, in order for anything to be possible, you have to act, you have to take action, just like with what you talked with your students about too, right? You can't just sit on the sidelines. And what good is all your information, Danny, if someone doesn't take action or implement the strategies that you're coaching on, right?
Right.
Same thing for me is that I'm going to spend as much time with somebody as I need. And so though I am a financial advisor by trade and fiduciary by trade, right? I don't charge a fee for that. I believe that we have to be very good at what we do. And the implementation is when everybody should have the outcome. So I don't get paid until implementation, and my clients really are better off when they implement the strategy.
Awesome.
Right. So, I don't believe in charging fees for that time.
Nice. And if anybody's out there is wanting to get in touch with you, and for sure I'll be talking with you, more after this, to dig in as well. But for anybody listening out there that might, or even watching on YouTube, that wants to reach out to you and get in touch with you to talk to you some more and get some more information, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can go to noplanningfees.com, noplanningfee.com.
Nice.
And there'll be a little link on there, a little video, and they can hit the button and schedule a call. So again,
No planning fee. Okay.
noplanningfee.com. Yep.
Yeah, good domain name. I like that.
Yeah.
At first, I thought you were going to say like Knoll or something like K.
Yeah.
I was like, what? No, but no planning fee. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to just talk with me and an entire audience about this. I agree. I think it's something that I know personally. I wish I had spent more time and talked with more people about structuring things in the past, but it's never too late. And definitely something that I'm going to be spending more time on with you and talk with other people as well. So
and if you think about it, the tax code is about 70,000 pages thick, right? And so I always talk about, there's two types of people that pay tax in this country. It's the informed and uninformed. And unfortunately, it's just how do we navigate through all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just really helping people take a step back and tap them on the shoulder and make them aware of their blind spots and see if they want to, take action and fix it.
Yeah. And I bet most of us need it. It could benefit from it at least, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we don't know that we need it yet, but.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it just comes down to education, right? I mean, I've never had a conversation with anybody where they haven't walked away and they didn't learn anything.
Yeah.
Right. And again, you asked a great question. Who does these types of planning strategies? Is those who understand it, do it, and they do it in a big way.
Nice. I think we'll end with that. That's a big, strong statement. And I think it's one that we should keep in mind as we, go through this, especially getting into the next year, right? Setting goals and planning and things like that. And I think this probably should be the top for a lot of people, at least one of the top things that they look into doing to make sure that we're not working so hard to generate this to only have to give up most of it, right? Like that's the sad thing is working real hard at something and find out, oh crap, like I should have been smarter about how I went about this because maybe I wouldn't have done all that stuff.
Right.
I have to make up for what I'm losing because I didn't have it structured in the right way or planned.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, Danny, I really appreciate you having me on today, and I hope that your listeners and everybody listening at least gain some value from here, from this conversation. And I really enjoy talking about this stuff. So reach out anytime.
Awesome, man. Have a good one. We'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks, man.
Yep.